Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea. Let's sit back and chat about what is happening up in the sky with the planets and the stars. And we're also going to tread into human design and gene keys today, as some very important things are happening in all three of the astrologies this week. So, how's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody had a good day yesterday. I actually got quite a bit accomplished yesterday. It was a good day. Eventually the sun came out, which we hadn't seen in a few days, and that always lifts you up and makes you feel better. And then we're back to wind and rain today. Yeah, that's the Northwest, and that's why it's so green, and that's why I love it. But that means today we're coming into the cave a little bit, and as you can see, again, the long sleeve shirts because it's chilly again. Oh well. Good morning, everybody that I see so far is Debbie Hedden. Nice to see you, Debbie. And Allison, good morning to you as well. And I'm sure there are others of you that are just getting ready to join us. And here we are today with the moon now out of void of course and into the sign of Taurus. Doesn't it seem like we've spent a lot of time lately in void of course moons? To me it does. Like sometimes during the summer we would see days go by where we would be in these little teeny tiny 10-minute, 30-minute void of course moons. And now it seems like they've gotten longer in that yesterday's was already in effect by the time we got on air and didn't, lasted all the way through the day and into the night until this morning about 3:30 my time, 6:30 for you all on the East Coast. The moon moved out of Aries and into Taurus and right into the arms of a welcoming Uranus, ready to rock your world, shake up your life, change some things, break your reverie, and push you to do something. So let's take a look at first, what does it mean when the moon is in Taurus? I think I'm going to do this for the next couple of weeks as we go through, maybe it'll be the next, several days, as we move out of each sign that the moon is in and into a new sign. We'll talk about what it is that we can focus on while the moon is in that particular sign. And I don't think you'll be surprised by the things that we can focus on because we talk about them a lot in terms of, what rulership has, what things are ruled by what signs and what planets. So today the moon in Taurus representing money, resources, and your values, anything of value, your possessions, right? While the moon is in Taurus, we're focusing on those kinds of things. We are also focusing on valuing the self, our personal boundaries even, right? The limits to which that you will go or the limits to which you will be pushed to do something. And also in this case, valuing your own natural talents, your own skills and your gifts, and knowing what it is that you bring to the table in any interaction, at any job, in any opportunity. So knowing yourself, priceless here in terms of the moon in Taurus. When the moon is in Taurus, our senses are also heightened, as Taurus is a highly sensual sign. When I mean sensual, I'm talking about the five senses, the sight, taste, feel, sight, smell, taste, touch, and something else, hearing, right? So when the moon moves through Taurus, all of that is heightened. We much more want to touch and be touched, and we want to get here. This is my favorite thing right now. I'm going to show you. This is from Bath and Body Works called Caramel Pumpkin Swirl, and it's divine. Candles, right? Scents can really push you into another frame of reference or into a new mood. If you're feeling down, light a candle or get your favorite natural oils or do something different. Maybe, give yourself a hand massage or ask your spouse or significant other to give you a foot massage. All these things are wonderful under Taurus, a Taurus moon, and make you feel loved and cherished, and that type of feeling of contentment comes from the sign of Taurus. Contentment and relaxation and gratitude and loving the feelings and the senses, everything that you are sensing through the five senses. This is not really your intuition. This is the physical world. Taurus is a physical sign. It rules the physical world. It's earth. and it's grounding, and it's practical in expectation of what happens here on the planet. Sometimes on the negative, we can become lazy, we might feel stuck, we may become rigid, or what gets pointed out to us is where we've been stagnating and where we need to be pushed to do something. And lucky for all of us right now, we don't really get to be stuck for too long, because it won't be but another few minutes, and the moon is going to come into a conjunction with Uranus, the planet of rebellion, awakening, surprises, electrical things coming down and jolting you, right? So expect good things, but expect surprises, unexpectedness, maybe unexpected visitors, unexpected money coming in. Who knows, right? It's this field of unexpected, not having expectations, I think is how I could frame this, that sort of rules the day to day. And indeed, really, the only aspect the moon is making today is that conjunction to Uranus. So for all of the day, then the possibility is for wonderful things. I got to tell you, so this morning I was tapping into all of this energy, and I'm writing down, all the things that I'm thinking of that might, surprises, and valuing the self and boundaries and blah, blah, blah. And then I got to another thing I'm going to share in a minute about our mental state today. And all of a sudden I was starting to get these images. They weren't really images, there were words that were flowing to me about the Ascension and Astrology show, which Cornelia and I were doing during the summer, and we took the summer off and we're revamping it. And so all of this was coming, and I'm writing down as fast as I can. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I had time to do a quick video for her and let her know what I'm thinking. And wouldn't you know it, just then my phone buzzes, and she's videoing me, chatting with me, telling me that she's got all these great ideas, not necessarily about Ascension and astrology, but it was an amazing little thing that happens right when these surprising things come. And today might be a great day to have a piece of paper handy, or your telephone recorder handy, so that you can capture what is happening for you in terms of the ahas or epiphanies or revelations or ideas, and literally write them down. You want to capture them because you don't know when it is that they may come into fruition, or maybe it's an idea that comes to you, but it's for someone else, like I had this morning. Who knows, right? But it's kind of an exciting day that way. Let's see who else has joined us. Mimi, good morning. Linda, good morning. And Ashley, Susan Bronlin, yay, it's nice to see you. Uranus and Taurus, that explains a lot. Uh-oh, you must have had some surprises today. And Mimi says, good morning to everybody. Lynn, good morning. Natasha, hello. Colleen and Chanel, great morning to all of you. Christine, good morning. Susan Bronlin says, oops, I guess it's the moon. Sorry, I heard one thing and missed the other. Well, the moon in Taurus, but also conjuncting Uranus. So you did hear correctly. You mean it's going to be more crazy than yesterday? Yesterday wasn't crazy. So it must be affecting something in your own personal chart that makes it a little bit crazy. Lynn, good morning. Delicious Taurus food. Yes, foodies. Taurus is great. Any taste, that was the other sense. I think I did feeling twice. Taste, right? Don't forget foods. Like today, I found this recipe yesterday. I've fallen in love with my Instant Pot. And I never would have thought I would like one, but one day during Amazon days or something, there was a special, so I bought one for me, for my son, and for my daughter. I went crazy on the Instapot, and I found a recipe yesterday for chicken tikka masala. And I went, wow, I've never even heard of this. Something in the back of my mind was like, masala, what is that? And I realized that I have all of the ingredients that are on this list, including garam masala, which is the spice used in the recipe. And so I'm going to make something wonderfully tasty for dinner tonight in my Instant Pot, which means it'll probably take me 10 minutes to make. So if you haven't gotten an Instant Pot yet, get one, because they're fun. And I'm having a great time playing with everything that you can do in that Instant Pot, including making homemade yogurts and hummus and yum stuff, good stuff. So anyway, Michelle, good morning to you. Christine says hello from Sweden. Nice to see you. Suzanne says yum. Rebecca, good morning. So we have quite a few of you out here this morning. So let me just reiterate really quickly. Today the moon is in Taurus, and we were talking about some of the qualities of the moon in Taurus. One is about money and resources and stabilizing a financial foundation, setting boundaries, valuing yourself enough to set boundaries and limits through which you're going to move forward, but also that you don't allow other people to encroach upon your boundaries. It's involved senses and sensuality, which is where taste, touch, and smell, and oh Lord, I'm going to forget the rest of them. Sight and hearing all come into play. It's like a symphony of senses when we have the moon in Taurus. And also contentment, relaxation. Go get a mani-pedi, go get a massage, go get a Reiki treatment. This is time to pamper yourself. And of course, on the more difficult side, this energy can be rigid, it can be lazy, it can be stagnating, or what is pointed out to you is where you may feel like things aren't moving forward, where you maybe have some work to do to break up the iceberg so that you can move ahead, right? So that's just a recap of the moon today in Taurus. And of course, the moon immediately conjuncts the planet Uranus. So that can bring surprises. And before anybody thinks that surprises are all negative or crazy making, they can be extraordinarily stellar in that it gives you insight into something that maybe you've been struggling with. It can move you forward in a way that other times you can't move forward, because Uranus is just one of those things that awakens you and moves you, right? It's a rebel, right? So it's wanting to move and make change. Doesn't want to stay with the old and the tried and the true. It really wants to shake things up a bit. And in Taurus, of course, it meets its match in stubbornness. So Uranus it's the rebel, while Taurus is the bull. It's stuck, it's stubborn. And so we have two big forces coming together and butting heads when we have the moon in Taurus this time. Any planet going through Taurus and meeting up with Uranus right now is meeting up with this stubborn place. So ask yourself a question. Where have I been stuck? Where have I been unyielding? Where is it that I need movement in my life? And maybe take some steps to break that up and make some moves. All right? So that's really a good thing, I think. And this is really for the next couple of days. We have the moon in Taurus until Thursday afternoon, late afternoon for you all on the East Coast. So you've got a couple of days to enjoy this sensuality and to enjoy breaking out of old patterns, doing a breakthrough. That's another word I think works with this, breakthrough, right? Okay. Now, there are a couple of other things going on today in the background that may be a little more difficult than at first glance. One of them is the fact that Venus at 4 degrees of Libra is now in an opposition to Chiron, which is at 4 degrees of Aries. So we have this love and war axis triggered, and love and war axis is also our relationship axis. So today, Venus opposing Chiron is where we may have to face up the disappointments and the difficulties that we have in our personal relationships. Not that I want you to, wallow in that kind of thing. I want you to be able to look at your relationships, especially if you are experiencing difficulties or have had some challenges in your relationships. This is a great day to look at that. Focus in on it for a minute. Where are you having difficulties? What are you disappointed by in that relationship or in those relationships? Focus on that first, right? Get some clarity around that. And then let's do the converse of that. And then let's look at what's really good in your relationships, right? Does the good outweigh the difficulty? Are the disappointments something that, you've been sitting with on a pity potty sort of thing, or that you are, that maybe you are playing victim in that way in this relationship? So focus on what's good after you see what the disappointments are. naturally, because it's Chiron, the disappointments and the disillusionments and the difficulties are probably going to be the easier thing to focus on. But that's sort of a habit that we have as humans. We can see the negative so much easier and quicker than we see the good. So go ahead and do that. Focus on that. And then bring up as a counterpoint everything that's good about the relationship, or good about how you interact with one another, or how you are when you're together and when things are working well. Remember the times when things were going well, so that you can focus that, so you're left with the focus on what's good and not with the focus on what was difficult. We may also feel a little insecure in our relationships today, as in maybe we're withholding affection or that romance because we don't feel secure enough to be able to go out there and just throw your arms around someone. Maybe there's something in underneath the surface that you're still grappling with, that you haven't let go of yet, where this person, whether they know it or not, irritated you in some way, and you're holding on to that, and which is keeping you separated from them. Remember, we're talking about that, was it yesterday? Separation, and applying love everywhere, right? Everywhere that you feel this kind of separation, or where you're withholding love, apply love, right? And let go of all of that other stuff. It's all BS. It's all illusion, right? All there really is love. And that means you work through your own stuff, right? That person really didn't do anything to you. You are co-creating this experience with that person. So it makes it really hard to put blame or victimness out there, because you created it too. Why did you create it is the question. What is it showing you? What do you have to gain by that? And that goes a long way to healing this wound. Chiron represents that wound. Venus in Libra is all about the relationships, healing the wounds in your relationships. Mostly your marriages, or your boyfriend-girlfriends, or girlfriend-girlfriend, boyfriend-boyfriend, but also your business partnerships. There may be something going on there as well, or the close relationships that you have with the people in your world. Maybe you belong to a group, a community, a tribe, and there's dissension in that. Well, this goes a long way to being able to work through those difficulties. But those difficulties don't get worked out unless you consciously choose to go there, right? You have to choose to go there and work those out. So let's see. Yes, very good, Lynn. She said she just had chicken masala at an Indian restaurant this weekend. It's very good. I can't wait. Rebecca says, hello, everyone. Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel, good morning to you. Great to see you ladies out there. So Venus opposing Chiron. Don't be afraid to work through those issues. Even if you don't have that person still in your life, there's work that you can do on yourself to help clear that field. Because if you left a relationship, for example, without having done the clearing with that, you're almost doomed to repeat that same sort of circumstance, but with a new person, right? So you have to really work through the issues in order to clear them, so that you don't wash, rinse, and repeat, right? So it's worth it looking at it, even if that person is no longer in your life. Okay, now, Mercury today also in conjunct to Uranus. So Uranus is kind of center stage today. And in conjunct is a 150-degree relationship. That means Mercury in Libra does not quite get what's going on with Uranus and Taurus, and nor does Uranus get what's going on with Mercury in Libra. So we may feel a little unsettled mentally. Our minds may be running into many different running in many different directions. See, I can't get my mind and my mouth to sync up. That is a Mercury quincunx Uranus. If I've never heard of one, it was perfectly clear in my mind, but it couldn't get to my mouth and say it right. We may be indecisive today. We may have issues around making big decisions. And if that's the case, that's okay. Just hold on until you get some clarity. Look into what is going on in your human design, perhaps. Maybe look at your authority again in human design and determine why it is the decision isn't coming. There may also be misunderstandings today, especially if you are not able to get your mind and your mouth to sync up, and what comes out of your mouth is not what you meant to say, but then it is out, you know, like the genie is out of the bottle, and you have to deal with that. So misunderstandings, indecision, feeling, you know, not quite having all of your mental faculties working on all their pistons today. But this is sort of transient energy, and it is not long lasting, and it will move out of the sphere of our influence after today. And maybe for some of you, this actually, you know, maybe it'll spur you to stop being so quick about things and slow down enough to get your thoughts and your minds and your ducks all in a row, so that what you do speak ends up coming out exactly right. Okay, that's the possibility. That's the high side of this. Good morning, Suzanne. Great to see you out there this morning too. Okay, any questions about those three, the moon in Taurus, conjunct Uranus, Venus opposing Chiron, or Mercury in conjunct Uranus? Any questions about that? No. If so, write them and put them in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to something that I want to say it was Christine maybe yesterday brought it up, that the nodes have shifted. So the north and the south node had been sitting at different gates than they are now. They had been sitting at the gates of the mind. I believe they were at 53 and 54. And 53 was the gate of beginning things, starting things. And the gate 54 was about ambitions and drives and goals, in the movement toward enlightenment or to accomplishing a major dream or goal or vision that you had. Now, those two have moved on. Remember the nodes, just let me remind you of this, the nodes back into a sign. They are always moving retrograde. I guess you would say that. They move from the 30th degree to the 0 degree in a sign. So they've been in the signs of Cancer and Capricorn, North Node in Cancer, South Node in Capricorn. And so they are counting down from there at about the 15th degree today, 14 degrees, 45 minutes. And they're moving next day, it'll be 13 degrees and so on and so forth. So they're backing sort of out of and backing their way through the zodiac. So in that case, then we are going into territory with the nodes where we've already had our lessons from Saturn, right? Saturn and Pluto both have sat at the gate 54. In fact, Pluto is there now, and Saturn and Pluto both had been at the gates 39 and 38. So we are actually moving through familiar territory, although it may be sort of behind the scenes energy that has been sort of provoking you from deep within you over the course of time. So you may not remember, of course, this was back in, you know, early part of January, where we would have had Saturn and Pluto sitting around these gates, but now destiny is catching up to this part of the chart and triggering again these two energies. So let's break them down and see what they are talking about for us, what they hold for us as the gift and the siddhi. And first of all, let's deal with the North Node. The North Node, also called the Dragon's Head, it is destiny. It is the direction we are moving in. So we call it our life path trajectory in human design. It is the direction which we must move. Now, you also have your own personal North Node in your chart that is about where you're moving in your own personal life. These nodes are the transiting nodes and where we as humanity are being pushed and moved, okay? So the gate 39, it is a gate that sits down here on the root center. So it is impulse energy. Let me get my cursor out of there. It is impulse energy, and it is impulse energy that moves out over toward the emotional center. In fact, it meets up with the gate 55. And when it meets up with the gate 55, it completes the channel of emoting and shows us where we can have some volatile emotional energy and where we are using emotions possibly incorrectly, or possibly we get it and we understand that it's a way for us to use as a compass about how to be abundant in our lives, because that's what the high side of that channel would be. But the gate 39 itself is provocation. That's the shadow energy, provocation. And as we move from provocation through dynamism, we end up at liberation, freedom, essentially. And it's interesting, liberation is a little bit more active. Freedom is a state of being, and that's what the gate 55 really brings us, is this idea of freedom. But liberation being much more of an active word, it's the act of freeing yourself, right? The act of becoming free. So literally we have something poking at us, right? Something that provokes us to move more appropriately toward the truth of who we are, toward encompassing both the divine and the physical. We talked about this yesterday. And the human design gate, we call this the activist, right? So this is a being active and being active in finding the right path for yourself, for taking what is provoking you and using it to move forward in your life in very powerful ways, not staying stuck anymore. In the repressed form of the shadow energy, this is where you feel trapped. And you may feel trapped in your relationships, because today that's the focus of that. You may feel trapped in the choice of work that you've gotten. You may feel trapped in a body that isn't being healthy. You may feel trapped in an emotional situation. So the repressed energy here, where you're not moving forward, where there's no dynamic motion, you may feel trapped. Rebellious now, on the rebellious side, this energy is about being malicious and maliciously provoking people, or being the victim of malicious provocation by someone else. And I did not mean to use the word victim, but experiencing that from somebody else, right? You're never a victim. You can always choose to move out of this energy. And that's the goal here, right? Provocation is about triggers to make you move. And a provocateur, you could be the provocateur. Literally, this may complete a channel in your chart and you find yourself in the position of provoking someone. Or you may find yourself in the position of being provoked by somebody that is just, irritating you enough that makes you stretch and grow and evolve. So this isn't a negative or hurtful kind of energy, but you know how we are, right? Humans, we get comfortable, right? The moon in Taurus, we're kind of maybe lazy, and we like staying here in our rut. We're quite comfortable. We don't want to move. So provocation comes along to give you that little needle shove and push you into new territory. So now this will be here. These nodes are in effect, the 39, 38. I meant to look that up before I got on air this morning, until November 12th. They will make another shift November 12th into much quieter energy, I might add. So we have, what is that now, almost 2 months of time of working through provocation and moving toward liberation, unchaining ourselves, right? It reminds me of the devil card in, I think it's the devil card in the tarot, where we see ourselves, we're chained, but we also hold the key to release ourselves. It's also a pretty Chironic kind of experience, because in Chiron, we also realize we hold the key, right? That's why the symbol for Chiron is that of a key. It looks like a K on top of a circle, right? But if you turn it on its side, what is it? It's a key. And it shows that we hold the key to the locks. We hold the key to our own liberation. Hopefully everybody understands what I mean by that. Janet, can you please touch on the codon ring of seeking with 39 and 52? I may be able to do that. I would have to look up information on the codons, because I don't have that. I can't imagine 52 is in the same codon ring as 39, but it might be. That would be funny, because that's one of the gates we go to next in November, is gate 52, which is the gate of relaxation and peace. It's, the yoga pose, still mountain, or I think it's called, where it's totally in stillness. And so interesting, we go from this provocative energy, this next energy, the south node in struggle, and then in 2 months, we're going to end up in peace and joy. So interesting, right? So we go from crazy to kind of like a workout, right? When you do yoga, you're, building, and then you do these more, poses that are more difficult, and then you wind down, and finally you're in Shavasana, and you're just relaxing. So we're in the more difficult poses this time, and then we'll go into Shavasana in a couple of months. All right, so let's take a look at gate 38. Gate 38 is the gate of struggle, and it is sitting on the spleen center. So when we're looking at the spleen, we're down here, and I'm sorry, it's on the root center, but it's heading up toward the spleen center. So 38 meets up with gate 28. Purposelessness meets up with struggle. So here the human design gate is called the fight for right, and it's not the fight, it's not a moral fight for what's right, but it is the fight and the struggle to stick with something that's worthwhile. So, for example, if women back in the 60s gave up the fight for, or I guess much further back in the early 1900s, if the abolitionists and the women that were the suffragettes, if they were stopped fighting for freedoms and for the right to vote, then we right now may be sitting in a place where we still don't have those kind of freedoms. They didn't give up. They kept that because the fight and the struggle were worth the problems that they were going through. And the struggle and the fight was worthwhile, so they persevered through that. So we have the energy of struggle in the shadow, but the gift is perseverance, being able to stick with what we know is right for us personally, right for us as humanity. But because this is, in your personal human design, what is it that you're fighting for? What is it that you are struggling with? And you kind of get the wisdom here about choose your battles wisely, because some things are not worth struggling over. Some things are not worth fighting for, but other things are. So it's choosing what is correct to hold tight to persevere through, to endure. Remember, the root center is where this energy is, and it's the energy of perseverance and endurance and stress. And struggle, of course, causes stress on that root center. But if you stick with the right fight, the right struggle, you end up with the highest expression, which is honor, right? Honor. Honor in battle, if you will. Honor in staying true to the fight or to the struggle. In its repressed mode, the gate 38 is a defeatist attitude or apathetic, where we don't care about the fight or the struggle. We don't care about anything. Maybe we also have the gate 28 on the opposite end, and it's triggering purposelessness in us. So we have to recognize when we've gotten into defeatist attitudes, or when we are not even caring about struggle or fighting or moving, finding something to stand up for. Because that's a part of humanity too, is that we want to stand up for our communities or for our rights or for our family. Those are things that are part of our tribal energies, right? We want to be able to stand up for what's right. And that may be personal and different for you than it is for me, but we also have our common core struggles that we have as humans that we want to make sure we don't fall into that apathetic sort of way of behaving. Now, the more rebellious side is stubborn persistence. Have you ever been stubbornly persistent in something that you know isn't ever going to work, right? Or that you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It's like beating your head up against the wall. The very definition of insanity is to keep pushing and struggling and fighting and getting the same result, but choosing, to keep doing it anyway, like, oh, maybe it'll be different today. That is the stubborn persistence that I'm talking about, where you keep persisting in this fight or this struggle that is really going nowhere. And maybe it doesn't even hold any real value for you anymore, but you've gotten into this struggle, and it's almost an issue of pride to let go, to stop the struggle. So reevaluate that. This is all from the past. The South Node represents our past, where we've come from. And the potential here is to struggle for the right things, to fight for what's right, right? That's the key here, is to fight for what's right. All right, questions. Rebecca, I think what I'll do tomorrow is I will find that that graphic I had. I printed it and I put it in this. Maybe I put it in my Gene Keys file, where we see all the rings and all the codons, and then you guys can see, how many there are and how they are all intertwined with one another. I can't say for certain that 39 and 52 are intertwined, but if they are, isn't it interesting that 39, provocation, and 52, peace or stillness, would be in the same codon ring? That would be crazy, but it could happen. Good morning, Kristen Page and Tracy Una Wagner. Great to see you ladies out there. Oh, no problem. Just remembered that they were in the same codon ring. I'll look it up. Good. Do that and bring that with you tomorrow, and I'll bring my end. Susan says, I have clarity now of what is happening for me. Thank you. Oh, you are most welcome. And good morning, Diana Ballgard. Okay, so if you have other questions, go ahead and put those in here. I want to show you the human design chart right now, because there's a couple of big things going on, and they're coming up. Let's say they're going to be coming up. So first of all, here's what we're back to, these reflector looking charts where there are no centers defined, and we have the node shift, which I showed here, the 39 and the 38. And we also have down here the planet Saturn at the gate 38. So remember I said that we'd had Saturn sitting there. Saturn turned retrograde and moved backward into that gate again. So the South Node and Saturn are sitting in the same energy, right? That struggle energy. And then Saturn tomorrow turns back to direct motion. So it will move forward again out of that gate, and likely at about the same time that the South Node and North Node will shift gates as well. But because the South Node and the North Node are backing into going from the 30 down to the 0 degrees, and Saturn will be moving from the 13th, 14th degree on up, they won't again be at the same gate. So, if they do, it'll just be brief. So here we have the gate 38 shown down here, and then the 39 and the 38 up here. What I want to call your attention to is Mercury having moved into the gate 18. The gate 18 is sitting over here on the spleen, and this begins a 2-month, just about September 17th through November 5th, where the spleen in all of our human designs becomes activated. Now remember what the spleen represents: time, intuition, health, and survival. So all of the gates on the spleen double as fear gates. And first we'll have Mercury, and then Venus, and then ultimately through the month of October, the Sun sitting at these gates that are fear gates. So we have the possibility, with the spleen activated over those next several weeks, of fear and paralysis coming into our awareness. Now, just because it sits on those gates doesn't mean you're going to have to succumb to fear. I think the idea here is, what is it that you're fearing? We're going to go through different ones. The first one right now being activated is the fear of perfection, the fear that we'll never be perfect, that the timing will never be perfect, that that book that I'm writing will never be proofread enough, edited enough to be able to be launched, that that art project that I've been working on has glitches in it, or has some impediments in it, and I don't like it, so I'm not going to do anything with it, but now I can't fix that, so I stop myself from putting any of my work out there because it isn't perfect. And so we're focusing then our minds right now, because it's Mercury, on why it is that we might think that things are not perfect in the moment, because all we have is this moment right now, and everything is as perfect as it could be in the moment, or else it would be different in the moment, right? So looking at what is the fear here, this is also called the gate of judgment and criticizing, because what we often do is we see where imperfections exist, and note that this is very far away from the throat, right? This is the spleen over here, and the throat's way up here. So there's no access to speak what it is that you feel is out of alignment. There's no energy for you to literally judge another person or to criticize another person, unless you have an invitation to do so. because the energy way down here does not make it to the throat except through an invitation. And that means if you see something that somebody's doing that's out of whack, or doesn't look good, or is, could be perfected in some way, you must first wait for them to ask you for your opinion or your input. Or you could say, I've seen this before. Could I offer you some input on a way to do this better? Waiting to hear what they say before you entertain this idea of judging or criticizing anybody. The best alternative, just keep your mouth shut, right? Don't offer up criticisms. Don't offer up judgment without that invitation to do so. It will save you from a lot of hurt feelings and possibly wrecking relationships, because everybody is in a different state of perfection, and everything is the best it could be right now in this moment. But the next moment changes and things could be different. With an invitation, you might be able to help somebody realign something in a more beautiful way, in a more joyful way. But again, unless you have that invitation, you don't do it. Just don't do it. And because it's Mercury, it's about your words and what you might speak. So it's just best right now not to judge or criticize anybody, including yourself. Include yourself here, because that's not appropriate either. All right. Rebecca says, seeing that 38 goes to the spleen and 39 to the emotional center sounds like a repeating theme with us evolving north node through our emotional body. You are so perceptive, Rebecca. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what this is all about. Because remember, for those of you who are fairly new here, you may not have heard this yet, but we as humans are evolving. We're evolving. That's not what's new. But what's new is what we are evolving to, and that is in releasing the survival energies of the spleen in favor of the emotional energies of the solar plexus. So rather than letting fear be our guide, our emotions are becoming our guide. And we don't know much about emotional. We don't have much EQ, emotional intelligence yet. And we're learning this, right? Because everything that is in our emotions right now is triggered by a fear of surviving or not thriving, such as the case may be. So everything that we get into arguments about with people, or where we undervalue ourselves, or when things happen and we blow up over it, all can be traced back to that spleen center and our fear of not surviving. Right? It's fear energy that we won't thrive, that we won't be seen, heard, valued, that it's all fear. It's false evidence appearing real. We have moved forward for this. And what's been happening over that mutation is that we have volatile emotional energy because we don't have the emotional intelligence yet. In fact, even our science is just now getting clear about the number of ganglions, nerve endings that are connecting up the emotional center from the emotional solar plexus to the stomach, to the gut, and the intelligence in the gut, and the intelligence from there to the heart, and the intelligence from there to the mind, and how all of that works. We have not been able to really pin that down yet. We're in the process, and we're recognizing how powerful our emotions are. And the way you know that this is an evolution is the volatility factor in the emotions that we are experiencing right now. As we move forward over time, we'll get the gist of how to work with emotions. We won't be spilling them out of our mouth onto everybody around us. We'll be able to look at it and go, I'm feeling like this is not correct for me, or not good for me, or this doesn't make me happy, so I'm going to withdraw my energy from that and move over here. It's no reflection on you. It's just for me that this is the correct way for me to go. No blow up, no big emotional overblown reactions. We will get away from eventually reactivity in those emotions, the volatility in those emotions. We'll learn how to use emotional energy, and it won't be based in a fear that triggers that volatile emotion. I hope that makes sense. It's over time. So this isn't like tomorrow we're done with this and our emotions are all clear and we know exactly what to do with them, how to behave. No, it's coming though. right? About 2027 is where we will see births with people who are very emotionally intelligent. They come pre loaded, if you will, with that program in their DNA. We that are already here on the planet are evolving our DNA to be that, right? We'll have that, but the people being born after 2027 will come with that program already installed, right? Windows 10, and we are in Windows 8 mode. We're in the upgrade mode, but they'll already have that. So I hope that makes sense to people. It's kind of an interesting time that we're in as we evolve away from that. And now for these next several weeks, we're going to have those things front and center in our face, right? It's going to be right there. What are we afraid of? Right? So if you have an emotional reaction to something that seems, that you want to perfect or that you want to judge, whether it's judging you or someone else or judging somebody in your world, what is the fear, right? Track it down. Don't allow the fear to own you. You own the fear, right? And the nice thing about the spleen is it rules time. And time in the spleen is spontaneous and instantaneous. So the moment you choose to look at that fear and release it, it's gone. It dissipates. And it may disappear altogether, right? And that never comes back and haunts you. Remember, the spleen is feel the fear and do it anyway, right? That's feel the fear and go for it. Don't let it stop you because it's a false evidence appearing real. The survival energies that kept us alive during our evolution so far did their job, right? That fear did its job. But now we can become co-creators. Now we know that we're not going to be eaten by a dinosaur. There's no doubt in my mind I'm going to survive the winter, and that I will have clothes, I will have food, and I have a warm roof over my head, and that I can move forward. Right? So don't let fear take you out. But fear and paralysis likely going to be something that we're going to be working through from now until November 5th. After that, then the planets leave fear alone for a while until we get into March, when then the Earth begins her transit through the fear gates, and we won't have to deal with that for a few months. All right. Questions, comments? Thank you, Rebecca. Anybody have any questions about fear and what that means? Are you now afraid because we're going to be experiencing fear? I know every time I think about saying those things, I wonder, like, is somebody going to take that and go, oh no, fear's coming. What am I going to do? Chicken Little, running around. No, take it one day at a time, one moment at a time. Look at what's triggering the fear. Fear is your friend still, right? Because it shows you where you're out of alignment with the truth of who you are. And in that, value it, right? So if it pops up and it stops you from doing something, you've got to really kind of focus on it for a minute. What is that fear about, right? Is it baggage? Because most likely it's baggage. One of the fears on the spleen, in fact, I'll just run these down for you so you know what the fears are pretty much on the spleen. There's 4, 5, 6, 7 gates of fear on the potential for fear on the spleen. And one is the fear of inadequacy. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. Maybe if I do one more class, or I get one more book read, or I do one more study, or get one more certification, then I'll be adequate to do what I am here to do. Not. Fear of the future. I don't know what's going to happen in 2020. Things look crazy. It looks like we're going to war with Iran. I don't know what's going on. I'm afraid of the future. So I take no action in the now because I'm afraid of the future. 44, that's, by the way, gate 57, and the first one was gate 48. Gate 44 is the fear of the past repeating itself. Right? Last relationship I was in, the first time the man raised his voice at me, it started me becoming a punching bag. And now because the current person that's in my life raised their voice, I'm afraid. I'm afraid the past is going to repeat itself. Or I don't even get into another relationship, or I never even test the waters on something anymore because I'm afraid the last time I did it, I nearly drowned, so I'm never parasailing again, kind of thing, right? So watch that. The gate 50 is the fear of failing in your responsibilities to your family. So it has a tendency to make you forget your own self, factoring your own self into the equation, and overprotect and overmother and oversmother the people around you because you're afraid if you don't, you'll be seen as a failure in terms of taking care of your family. The gate 32 on the spleen is the fear of failure. And sometimes I think, I don't know if other human design people would agree with me, but sometimes I think this is also the fear of success, right? We may fear success more than we fear failure, right? What does it look like if I succeed? You know, what does it look like? What goes on in my world then? What do I have to strive for if I have all my dreams fulfilled, right? So sometimes I think that one doubles as the fear of success or the fear of failure. And then the gate 28 is the fear that all of this, there's nothing of purpose in this world, that there's the struggle is all for naught, right? That there's this purposelessness that I feel. And I feel like it doesn't matter, right? It is a giving up on oneself. It can lead to, the potential of, not trying, failure to launch kind of syndromes. But it can also be because I feel nothing or I feel purposeless that I engage in kind of wild behavior. I sort of, poke the bear, or I, do some very dicey things, right? Like Evel Knievel kind of things. So purposelessness is another fear that pops up here. And then, of course, the gate 18, where we are already beginning this with Mercury sitting here, and that's the fear of not being perfect. And then I become judgmental and criticizing. All right, I hope that helps everybody. So Allison says, definitely a fear of success. Isn't that interesting? I mean, even Marianne Williamson saying about that, it's not that we fear that we're not good enough, it's that we fear, and I'm paraphrasing in a very bad way here, we are, afraid of our beauty, we're, afraid of our greatness. And I think the Christian religion has done a lot of that to us, and, oh my God, we can't be better than God. Well, hello, you are God, you are divine. So you are here to be that perfection. You are here to be that beautiful soul. You are here to ignite your passions and share them with the world. That's what you're here to do. So the fear may be, though, that in some way where you're usurping God's power, or his taking away something from being something that we're not meant to be. So I really do think sometimes it's the fear of success more than the fear of failure. Okay, well, let's look at the Pleiadian-Earth energy. I need to take a drink here. Talking too much. My mouth is getting dry. All right, so questions, comments, go ahead and put those in the comments stream, and I'll check those one more time before we leave today. Let's look at the Pleiadian-Earth energy of the day. Today is 8 being. 8 being. And remember that the 8 is the number of the universal energy for the day. So if we were on the planet Mars, we would be resonating with this 8. If we were sitting in the black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, we would be resonating with this energy of 8. It is the energy of connection. It is the energy of seeing how that invisible web and how all things are interconnected, and that even abundance is connected to the number 8, because it is a birthright we have, right? To have everything we need to be who we want to be. And who do we want to be? Being. We want to be nurturing and creative. And the earth energy of the day puts us in that seat of creativity, of starting new things. And of course, the shadow perhaps for the day is that we need to release being needy or reactive in our emotions, or being overly critical, right? So we hear there's a sameness between the Pleiadian-Earth energy and the human design, right? With Mercury sitting at the gate of perfection and the gate of judgment or being critical. So I love it when this happens, where we get these synchronicities, or we see the coherence between the different systems: astrology, human design, gene keys, Pleiadian-Earth energy. If I had been looking at the Mayan calendar, we would see being is Imish, the cosmic alligator or crocodile, the creatrix of the universe. So it's interesting, right? She didn't stop and think about, is this going to be perfect or not? She just created this universe and populated it with beings and with the trees, plants, minerals, grounds, you name it, right? There was no question about, is it perfect? It just is. It just is perfect. So kind of a fun way to look at that. Alrighty. I don't see any other questions popping up. You guys are strangely silent today, although maybe there's something I missed. No, I don't see any questions or anything I missed. Definitely, Rebecca, I will try to find my graphic of all of the codon rings, and we'll bring that up tomorrow because it's kind of fun to look at those. And I think that is it for me today. Tomorrow we will dive into Saturn going direct and what does that mean for all of us, and take a look a little bit deeper. Tomorrow has some crazy things going on with the moon, trining Saturn, Mars, and Pluto. That ought to be fun, and fun in a good way. I think that one might be an interesting day. So for now, have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye everybody.